Hey, what is going on, everybody? This is Tim Odell with Odell Complete Landscape. Today we're going to be pouring out the concrete, and we are right now, what we're doing is we are setting up plastic, 3 mil plastic to go on the house so we don't get it dirty when we start to do our stamped concrete, because we are going to be doing a two-tone coloring, which is gets a little dusty and it could get messy. And you know, the concrete gets a little messy as is with flicking it around and moving it into places where you need it. So we want to make sure the house is completely covered, because we do not want any of that concrete or two-tone color getting on the house, because it is a hassle to clean.
Alright, what's going on, you guys? This is Tim Odell with Odell Complete Concrete. I'm just watering out the stone right now to make sure it's nice and saturated so that the concrete doesn't go off on us too much, because it is summer and it has been pretty hot lately. We're doing a wooden stamped concrete today, dark gray, two-tone, smoky blue on top, antique release. And right now I'm just waiting for concrete, and we got all the guys here. Well, that's a lot of just kind of relaxing until the concrete gets here.
Here are all the stamp mats that we're going to be using. They're about 12-inch wide, and they come in different variety of lengths to mix it up as you're laying them down. So typically when you're pouring out your concrete, you want to make sure you float the edges first, so that when you come back around with your rod board, you can rod the middle section to the exact levels of the side that you already floated for the sides. Also, if you don't have your rebar up on any chairs or dobies like we don't, always remember to pull up your rebar. I have one guy specifically just pulling up the rebar, and he is the guy with the shovel and gray t-shirt next to the pumper, and the pumper I use is Leo. Great pumper. So shout out to Stable Gloves. So here is our 4-foot wooden bowl float, and this is a nice bowl float to use at the beginning when you first float your concrete, right after you rod it, because it will pretty much just smooth out any imperfection after you rod it. It also actually brings up the cream really nicely too. So you can see us throwing in some concrete in some low spots we had. And you can usually find the low spots when you go over the concrete with your first pass on the bowl float. Some areas just won't fill in once you start bowl floating. So you just toss a couple scoops of concrete in and then go over with your bowl float, run it over, and it'll just fill in naturally. And we got some guys going around the edges with our hand floats. And now we're breaking out the funny trowel, get an early pass on the concrete slab without having to go out there on knee boards. And the funny trowel is really just a hand float on a stick. Now we got our walking edger, which is a 1/2-inch radius, starting to put the edge on all the patio slab. And we used 3000 psi for this concrete mix. So what we're doing right here is we are measuring off of the end of the patio slab about, I believe it was 10 feet, because this patio slab was exactly 20 feet. And once we measure from both ends of the patio slab 10 feet and put our joint in, as we are doing right now, once we start stamping out the concrete patio, our stamp mats will end exactly on this control joint. So we got the 6-foot joint cutter out right now, and it's really nice to use the long ones because then you get really perfect straight lines, since the 6-foot reaches pretty much almost half of the width of this patio. That's a custom made joiner right there. So now we are going over the concrete again with a funny float, really just getting the cream up again. No, actually, that is a funny trowel. We are smoothing out the concrete now, sealing it up. And it looks like it's time to get out on the knee boards. So Evan jumped out there first, really just to clean up all the edges behind the plastic, making sure those edges look prestige. You can see he just has these little tiny wooden knee boards, really easy to make and cheap. Alright, so now we are starting to throw out the two-tone color, and this is smoky blue. It's gonna have a really nice contrast when we are all done with this project of black, well, a dark midnight gray, and the smoky blue color. And you can kind of see how my guy Evan is doing it. He puts a little bit of powder on top of the broom and just kind of flicks his wrist out there. You want a nice wide even spread when you are throwing on your two-tone color. You don't want clumps getting clumped up on the concrete. It just doesn't look good. But did you see that? He scoops it on top and flicks his wrist. Once you have a good enough coverage of the two-tone covering all the concrete and you can't see any of that color of the concrete, it's time to lay out your stamp mats. We're starting off with a pretty big one. You could do these solo, but it is hard, and we actually are going to show you guys how, if you were doing the solo, how you would do it. But since we have the luxury of multiple people being here to help, we carry this together and drop it together. Makes it just that much easier, but you can do it solo, and you will see how. So we're just lining this up, butting it up right against our form and to the corner of the house. Pretty simple. And you know when it's not time to stamp concrete when you hit it into the concrete and you start peeling that mat up and it starts to peel the concrete with it. So that's when you know it's not time to stamp. So the little ones are pretty easy to bring out solo, but these stamp mats, they don't look heavy, but they are actually quite heavy. I would say they're at least like 50 pounds, and they're just awkward on how you have to hold them since they're so long. But here's the technique. You pretty much roll it up just like that, grab one end, and then you can roll it right out onto the concrete. And that's how you would get this project done solo. So hopefully that's a cool little technique to help some of you DIYers out there trying to complete a job like this on your own. If you can, definitely call up a buddy, try to help you out. So now that we have this all the stamp mats out on the concrete, we're gonna start pounding them into the concrete, getting the nice imprint of the wooden stamped, and get this patio looking gorgeous. So it doesn't take too much power to really pound the imprint in. It also depends on how hard or wet your concrete is, and you can kind of feel once you're on top of the concrete and start pressing down with our stamper. But you want to make sure to get every little inch of your stamp mats, because if you don't, you're gonna have areas that don't look like they got a good imprint. So in some areas where there should have been a joint on these boards, we can kind of put them in ourselves, or say that the stamper just didn't get the imprint as well. We'll come back with our little chisel and just chisel those joints in. Make it look really nice and clean. So we just stripped the front face of the step of the patio, and we are just smoothing it out right now with our floaters, and we wanted to get some two-tone on it as fast as possible and get our stamps imprinted on the front face to give it some texture as well. And then we chiseled the joint in the middle where the joints were on top. I don't know if you can see that. Getting all the plastic out of the way, just cleaning up as we go so it's not such a big cleanup at the end. We also have a wooden texture mat, so any areas that don't look like they got enough texture, we'll just put them on top of the patio anywhere. Also, where you're going to be using that wooden texture mat for the sides, because it's really hard to get a texture, the big wooden mats on the side. So we just use a small texture one, and that one works as well. So we're starting to get the next side all textured up with a two-tone on it. So here is the next day after the concrete pour. It's all stamped out, it's all finished. The only thing that we really have to do now is get all of the leftover two-tone off of this patio and give this thing a nice pressure wash, really clean it up. We also are going to come back to seal it, but we need to wait at least 28 days before we seal it, because we got to wait for it to cure out completely. I actually tried renting a pressure washer from Home Depot, and their pressure washer did not seem to work at all, so I couldn't even use the pressure washer. As you can see, it's just like drizzling on the concrete, less than a pressured nozzle hose. So we ended up just having to use a hose with nozzle, and one of us would just be brushing the concrete. it just took a lot more time to get all this two-tone off, all the excess two-tone, since our pressure washer wouldn't work. It was a bummer. But, you know, you got to work with what you got. So we just ended up breaking out the hose and just going really slow with it, making sure to get all that extra two-tone off. And you can see the product is looking really nice. You can see the two-tone in it. It's like a smoky midnight blue. Just as the homeowner wanted. Matches perfectly with the house. And this is what I'm talking about. We had to break out our broom to really just try to scrubbing any excess two-tone off. The hose gets it done. It just takes a lot longer. And you can see our joint that we put in the concrete landed perfectly on the end of one of the stamp mats. So it looks like a perfect board. A perfect 12-inch board, just like the rest. So here is how it looks after we washed it all down. This is just a quick little look. This is not the final product, but this is close to the final product. This is how it's going to pretty much look once we seal it, but we'll be back in 28 days to seal it. Also, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That really helps out the channel. It really motivates me to keep going. And comment down below like what you guys like to see and how you guys like us to film, because you know, I definitely take feedback in. And let me know how you guys think this job turned out as well. What's up, you guys? So what we're doing right here is we're back on the stamped concrete job. We're not in the backyard right now, we're in the front, but what we're doing right here is we're diluting our sealer just a little bit. For 1 part acetone, 4 part of this glaze and seal. We're using a little water bottle as our measuring to the bottom of this blue wrapper. And we're gonna do, like I was saying, 1 part acetone, 4 parts sealer. And the reason why we do that is because this helps the sealer just apply smoother and makes it so there won't be as many bubbles bubbling up from the sealer. It'll just come out a lot nicer. So Sam's, yeah, he's having a little bit of a hard time pouring this sealer into that water bottle. Should probably get some gloves on, huh?
That'd be nice.
I'm gonna grab you some gloves. This is his pair. It's a gray one. Here.
Here's a trick. Pour the backwards the way.
Your hands are sealed now.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a little trick for you guys.
Yeah, pour backwards, and it'll pour smoother. So
it feels awkward at first, but it's the way to go.
So we're gonna fill this all the way to the top, because that's how much we're gonna need for this whole backyard. Maybe 2, but I'm putting my money on 1. It's a pretty small area, only 250 square feet, somewhere around there, 250 to 300 square feet. Can't quite remember. But once the sealer goes on, man, it's gonna look good. I'm excited to show you guys once we get to the ceiling.
Can you see where the line is?
Yeah, kinda.
then more. It was probably hard too, just because like when you first pour it, it's like completely full. Okay, one part acetone. That was 4 parts, right? How full is that sealer feeling still?
Pretty good.
I mean
Yeah, I can do. Oh, that's half.
Oh, about half. Okay.
I can go halfway. You wanna go halfway? Let me go half.
No. Yeah, I guess. Why not? Oh, I mean, it doesn't matter. I would keep it consistent. Keep it consistent.
Because this is like halfway. Yeah.
Keep it
You
consistent.
gotta hurry because it's already getting hard. I can feel it.
Hard?
Like it's like sticky.
Oh, okay.
So we have to hurry.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen.
That's probably why I put the acetone. That's how sticky it's gonna be. See that?
Oh yeah. Wow.
Oxygen.
This is a time critical process, everybody. So we're on a time crunch right here.
Faster the better.
Exactly. Especially because once you start putting that sealer in these containers right here, it starts to eat away at this plastic immediately.
One more after this.
Okay. A little more. And this is like kind of like one of our favorite sealers to be using, Glaze and Seal. Been using it.
Wet look, right? Yeah, this is wet look.
Yeah, wet look. It's gonna make it look like when you spray water on it. This is the sealer, me and my dad always use. David Odell with Odell Complete Concrete. Sure, you guys all know him. All right, guys, here we are on the state concrete job. Wooden plank, 12-inch planks. We're about to start sealing this baby up. And keep in mind, guys, this is about 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. So you want a nice even spread. And we did already pressure wash this earlier today with a degreaser. Earlier today we had another job. Now we're coming back about 6-7 hours later and putting the sealer on.
Nice and even, huh?
Nice and even.
Keep pumping it.
You can already see how the color is really coming out. You don't want to get it too heavy in one spot. You don't want puddles.
Yeah, I like that.
Right there, yeah.
Pause.
So here is the final look at this end product. It's got that nice wet look seal on it, two-tone colored concrete with the seal on. Should last for a long time with no stains, nothing to worry about. Always recommend people who do their concrete with like a nice decorative design to always seal it afterwards. And I hope you guys enjoyed the series of this 2-part series of the setup and concrete pour. If so, please make sure to like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to comment any questions you may have on this job. And thank you guys very much.